Hello ladies and gents, I'm DK86 and today I'm talking about the NVIDIA GeForce Gtx 1080 benchmark performance. I know there's an NDA in place and people aren't allowed to talk about this right now, but it looks like a website called videocards.com has leaked the benchmarking figures, so let's take a closer look. These aren't just the standard boost clock figures, they also later included the overclocking figures as well. So yeah, like I said, let's see if this beast of a card really is what we all think it is. Okay, so like I said in my intro, a website called videocards.com leaked benchmarking figures of the GTX 1080. If you want to know more about the GTX 1080, literally everyone in the tech tubing community and anyone who's anyone in the technology space, especially in terms of gaming and PC hardware, has reported on the GTX 1080. So I really recommend you go and check out videos by Jace2Cents, Awesome Source Network, Paul's Hardware, and Linus Tech Tips, even Hardware Canucks and all of them guys. You know who I'm talking about. If you're watching this video, you obviously have an interest in this sort of thing. So let's get on with it. So videocards.com reported that they received benchmarking performance figures for the GTX 1080. Now we all know what NVIDIA is boasting about the performance of this card. Obviously, like I said before, it's all still under NDA from the main channels. So I am just reporting on this. It is still a leak and we all know that you can't really trust leaks 100%, but my gut is telling me that these figures are probably accurate. So let's take a look right now. They posted this image right here which compares the GTX 1080 to a bunch of other cards. There's 9 cards in total including the GTX 1080, with the GTX 970 right down at the bottom and the GTX 1080 right up on top. Now because this image is quite tall and it doesn't really fit in the screen properly, what I'm going to do right now is slice it up so you can have a better look at it. So as you can see now, hopefully a little bit more clearly, this compares the performance between FireStrike Ultra, 3DMARK 11 Extreme, FireStrike Extreme FireStrike Performance and 3DMARK 11 Performance. As you can see, judging by the graph right now, and this is obviously not overclocked, this is running at 1886 MHz, which is the boost clock, probably relying on the GPU Boost 3.0 technology. The GTX 1080 really does pack quite a punch, and as NVIDIA claimed at their unveil event for this card, it really is more powerful than the GTX Titan X, which is kind of crazy because the 1080 is coming in at $599 for the Founders Edition, and that's cheaper than a Titan X, which is like $1,000. So the performance you're getting out of a GTX 1080, judging by these figures which you can see in front of you, is quite mind-numbing, to be honest. It is pretty damn crazy. When NVIDIA showcased this card at their event, we could see that it was running at an overclock of 2114 MHz, so 2.1 GHz at 67 degrees Celsius. Everyone found that quite surprising, seeing as you can run a card that high on an overclock with just 67 degrees, and they also claimed that it was just the reference cooler, which is now known as the Founders card, at 67 degrees, which is quite crazy and people can't really get their heads around it. So I've just stuck an image of that up here, which is a screenshot from the NVIDIA event showing the 2114 MHz overclock running at 67 degrees. As you can see on this other image that they posted up on the video cards website, it clearly shows that even when the card is on the 2114 MHz, it was running at 59 degrees Celsius as a maximum, which again is crazy. I mean, I have a GTX 970 by EVGA, which is the super clocked edition. I run that at 1500 MHz and it reaches temperatures of about 65 degrees Celsius, and that's on air. I don't have it water cooled or anything like that. And speaking of overclocks, a few hours after this videocards.com website posted their figures for the GTX 1080 performance, they went ahead and posted the GTX 1080 overclocking performance. Now this time round the card was overclocked to 2.1 gigahertz, and they posted another image which is quite tall, so I'll slice it up for you so you can take a look at it, and these are just the FireStrike scores. So again, you can clearly see that the GTX 1080, even with the overclock, obviously is a lot higher, and seeing as the standard boost clock for this card is 1733 megahertz, it's crazy that you can overclock it 381 megahertz to get to the 2114 megahertz boost clock. I mean, sorry, not boost clock, the overclock. That's crazy performance right there. I mean, look at how it's outdoing the Titan X and even the 980 Ti, and especially the GTX 980. So when NVIDIA claimed that this card performs even faster than two 980s in SLI, it doesn't look like they were joking, judging by these figures especially, even though these are just synthetic benchmarks and, you know, we need to wait for real world performance with games and, you know, for people like Jay's 2 cents and stuff to show us their actual findings, and Kyle at Awesome Source Network. You know, we still have to wait for those, and I'm not trusting this until I see actual figures once the NDA from NVIDIA has been lifted with all the tech tubers. But if I am going to take this graph seriously and this benchmark leak from video cards, I don't think it was video cards themselves that did this benchmark and leak. They're making out that it was provided to them and they've just reported on it. But yeah, even if it is to be believed, and I think, you know, from my own personal perspective, it looks like this could actually be accurate judging by what we know about the GTX 1080. Yeah, I think this card's going to be a killer, seriously. I mean, the GP104 core architecture with the 8 gigs of GDDR5X RAM, it's crazy. Another interesting thing that I really wanted to note before I end this video is Tweaktown. They attended the NVIDIA event in Austin, Texas a couple of days ago, and even they reported on this leak, and they said, and I quote, "While my GeForce GTX 1080 sits on my shelf about to be installed into my Core i7-5960X system for my review, now that I'm about to download the drivers, there are now some leaked benchmark numbers, courtesy of video cards. Remember, these are leaked benchmarks, we're just reporting on them, but this is about what we expect to see from our results too. The GTX 1080 destroys everything else, including the Titan X, GTX 980 Ti, and everything AMD has to throw at it. The Radeon R9 Fury X, R9 Fury, and R9 390X. The GeForce GTX 1080 had its GP104 powered GPU sitting between 1860 and 1886 MHz thanks to GPU Boost 3.0. That chart though, wow, AMD must be looking at every single number right now. Not too long now, guys. So I think it's interesting that Tweaktown themselves reported on this, even though they're under NDA not to post anything, well, any of their findings anyways. But for them to even report on this, I think it adds a little bit more weight to this leak. But yeah, I don't know, we're gonna have to wait for the official benchmarks from all the review websites and YouTubers and stuff, so we'll wait and see if this benchmark actually was accurate. But for the time being, you have to admit, this is really exciting stuff, and if this does turn out to be legitimate for the GTX 1080 benchmarks, I think we've got a winner on our hands. What I really want to know though is I want to see benchmarks for the GTX 1070 because for $379 for the Founders Edition of that card, and seeing as they're saying even that performs faster than a Titan X, I really want to see what a $379 card can do in regard to competing with a Titan X. But that's all for this video. Please comment below and let me know what you think of these benchmarks. Do you believe the leak? Do you not believe the leak? What do you think about this? And what are your thoughts on the GTX 1080? I'm DKD6. Please leave a like if you like this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, see you in the next one. I'm DKD6. Bye.